yours specifically. So we're talking about today, it's about leadership, communication, change, generational differences, of course. But the bottom line is influence. Are you personally influential enough to make those things happen? Do you have the trust and relationships in place between all generations to create that sustainable culture to drive your businesses forward? That's the topic. So raise your hands if you're dealing with difficult people in your life right now. Come on, difficult people. Come on, in your life right now. Those of you who did not raise your hand, you are those difficult people. That's you. That's you. Some of the most difficult people that we deal with on a regular basis are the know-it-all experts. How many of you are dealing with the know-it-all expert in your life? And how many of you actually married one? That'll happen. God bless you. Somebody's doing this back there. That's bad. We get face-to-face with people of all ages. They know everything about everything. And our studies show the number one thing to do is to praise their ability. It's very important that they know, they know something. Number two is to paraphrase what they say, repeat back to them what they say, and lead them to find their own errors, because you may have noticed pointing out their mistakes is not working for you. And number three is to focus on the solution. What is the goal of the know-it-all expert? What's the goal? To be right. How many people in this room have ever been right? Oh, come on. How many people have just been damn right? Come on, yeah. How many people in this room have been so right that nobody would talk to you? Just kind of show up right? Years ago, I had a young guy working for me. This guy was fantastic. This young guy was fantastic. Everything he touched turned to success and profitability. This one guy was responsible for 28% of the entire company's revenue. One person working for me, I coached him up. Thank you. One day, number one was wrong. He was wrong. Yes, he was. And I was right. Oh, yes, I was. And I walked up to number one that day, and I looked at him in all his wrongness. He looked up at me in all my rightness. And I explained with great charismatic flair how incredibly wrong he was and how incredibly right I was. And I was so impactful and articulate that he agreed. And he quit. He freaking quit. Yep, but it worked for the competition. Learned a big lesson that day, and that is if you criticize others' ideas too much, they'll almost never use yours no matter how good they are. I started off working for a company digging ditches, and I worked up to a ditch witch, which is the machine that digs ditches. And I ran ditch witch crews and all this stuff. My boss left, got his job. Next thing you know, I'm 27 years old and the boss. Oh yeah, young boss. Got any young bosses here? Oh yeah, young boss. And all of my people were older than I was. Oh yeah, young boss. Got to work that first day as a young boss, and I met my people, and I called them my people. I said, people, by infinite wisdom, I will lead you to the promised land of success, all your hopes and dreams and ideas and innovations. Forget about all that. We're going to do things a special way, and that way is called my way. It's not my way, it's the. Was I effective? No. They made up a special name for me. They called me punk-ass manager. It is hard to be effective when you're punk-ass manager, and I learned a big lesson that day, and that is, and if you make people feel important, you and what you have to offer is a lot more important to them. You know, statistically, at any age, people don't choose what's best or what's good or what's right. They choose what they're comfortable with, whether it's the best or not. If there was one definable best, everybody would choose that. But decision-making doesn't work that way. When it comes to being effective with all generations and working better together, it is in fact about judgments. So raise your hand if you've been judged. Raise your hand if you have judged. And how many of you would never raise your hand regardless of anything that I say? Thank you. Thank you. So here's our experiment today. I want you to go ahead and just kind of just kind of pick a partner who's already sitting next to you. Just kind of look in your partner's eyes, and if you're alone, I can't help you. But make a friend. But I'll just go ahead and look at the person next to you. You can do it. Just kind of turn. You can do it and kind of look deeply into their eyes. There's no touching, brother. There's no touching. Let's try that again. All right. Without touching your partner, sir. If you're looking at me, you're not doing it. Okay. So look, you can do it. Look at your partner's eyes. Go on. Stare deeply at your partner's eyes. As you're staring deeply at your partner's eyes, ask yourself this question: do you see anything weird in there? Yeah. That's called judgment. That is called judgment. And for those, you can stop doing it now. For those of you who think that you're not judgmental, it's called liars. You're liars, yeah. We are walking, living, breathing judgment machines. We just judge all the time. Who here has ever had to evacuate for a hurricane or a flood or a natural disaster in your life? And then you got to go re-evacuate and come back in after the disaster? Had to evacuate Houston, Texas, as we often do, and for a hurricane, and I had to come back and re-evacuate. So I'm coming back into Houston after the evacuation to re-evacuate, and I get lost in the outskirts of town, big town. pull into a gas station. Sitting at this gas station is this crusty old guy, Judgment. And this guy is so old, it looks like he's not going to live through the conversation. He's an old guy. He's got like fishing hooks in his hat. He's got that far away disturbed look in his eye. I get the feeling I'm not going to get very good directions. Are you coming to sit down, ma'am? Okay, well, welcome. She was creeping up on me. I was seeing if she had a weapon. I couldn't tell if she was. Anyway, all right, making sure. I was just checking if she was packing. Anyway, so like I said, there's this guy sitting there. He's got fishing hooks in his eye. This guy's old. I don't think he's going to live through the conversation, right? Judgment. I said, "Excuse me, sir. I'm trying to get back to Houston. Can you help me?" He goes, "What road you come in on, boy?" There's one road, and we're both on it. So this guy's not the sharpest knife in the drawer. So I said, "What you want to do?" He said, "Go down the road a piece." Like, a piece of what? He goes, some miles, like 1 mile, 1,000,000 miles. Where could be a gas station, man? He said, "Listen." So I'm trying to get back to Houston, give me some directions. He goes, "Listen to me, son." I said, "Okay, what you want to do now?" He said, "Go down the road a piece. There's going to be a highway, and there's going to be a hump on that highway. Get up on top of that hump. When you're on that hump, look out your window. You see like there's a dirt road and a pond, a trailer park. Don't go in there. Stay on that main road and take a left where the old schoolhouse used to be." Tell me, take a left at a landmark I've never heard of that no longer exists. What happens next happens to a lot of us, working hard like you guys are, and I snapped. Anybody ever snap? You snapped. You snapped recently, just looking at you. You snapped. Yeah. And you're that smiley face guy, the guy, he seemed so nice before they found all the bodies. He seemed so nice. But I snapped, and I used the D word. I said, "Sir, you just dumb." He said, "You know something, son? I ain't the smartest man around these parts, but then again, boy, I ain't lost neither." Who had the communication problem, right? So big lesson in life, big lesson in generations, big lesson in experience, big lesson in influence. That is, everybody knows something you don't. And the minute you think you know it all, wisdom leaves you like that. What's weird is what stays. Your intelligence, your time on the job, your experience, just the wisdom that leaves. So how many people here remember the old TV show Lassie? Remember Lassie, old TV show? For those of you too young to remember Lassie, Lassie was a story of a real smart dog and a real dumb kid. And in this show, Timmy, the dumb kid, would hear Lassie bark. Lassie would go, "Whoa, whoa," and Timmy would go, "What? What, Lassie? What?" There's a man with his foot caught on the railroad track, because he was fluent in dog for some reason in this stupid show. Remember the TV show Flipper with the dolphin? Flipper? What kind of noise did Flipper make? That is not at all the noise of it. Now, what the hell? That was like a hungover Flipper is what that was. That's a drinking Flipper. Flipper is pretty much just a liquid Lassie. Put those two shows together, call it Lassie, same damn show. Now, Lassie and Flipper didn't have to speak English or the language of the day, understand the technology, or have any information that was important to have. Actually, the most important information, which was go now. The message of those animal shows from the 50s and 60s and 70s is troubles of brewing, follow the animal. So we have a pretty good idea that everybody of any age knows something we don't. The problem that we have day to day is people are often wrong. Ever happened to you? How many of you deal with people who are wrong? Come on. What do you tell them? Wrong. Maybe use like a big leadership hand motion. That is wrong. Here's what I told the guy I was working for me one day. I said, "I know you're intelligent. I just can't tell that by talking to you, okay? Because you're wrong." So we looked at our research. We partner with Gallup, and we surveyed over 5,371 top performers over 10 years. The 5,371 made the list because they were good at getting along together, getting buy-in on change with new people and moving their businesses forward. Those companies made the list, and they picked people in those companies that made that happen. That was 5,371 people. Took 10 years with some help from Gallup. Then some young people with Gallup, some industrial psychologists, wanted to dig through the data and look for the top 1% of a group we already found was great. So, okay, if you want to do that, so they did. So what did the top 1% do that made them better than a group that was already great? There were some specific traits. And one of the top traits was they didn't use the word wrong. They said things like, "I disagree with you, but I'm willing to listen." I've never heard that before. What you just said doesn't make any human sense. I mean, I've been here for 20 years. You've been here since Monday, but please tell me more. So what it was rather than you're wrong was a request for more information. Took that tactic, 3 things can happen. Number 1 is you might find out that you're much more in agreement than previously thought because you listened. Number 2, you listen and realize, yeah, they are nuts, but now you know why they're nuts because you listened. Number 3, they start to change their story to match your story in an effort to look right in front of other people. What's that about? Well, our research showed that, in fact, was the beginnings of trust. So how many people in this room have ever read a book on trust? Okay, who's read a book? Just a book? Any kind of a book at all? Who's just drinking beer and watching TV? Okay. If you've never read a book on trust, you've missed very little, very, very little. Most books on trust say the same thing for like 100 years. It takes time to build trust. You got to do what you say you're going to do over a period of time. And that sounds right, I guess. We did the research on that. Over 6.5 years, looked at all previous research and white papers and studies written on trust, even looked at the old Dale Carnegie stuff. We went as far back in our research as 1916. If you're doing research in the U.S. before 1916, a lot of people named Jedediah. It just gets weird. Trust me, start 1916. A lot of research pre-World War II, a lot of research post-World War II, a lot of research for some reason in the 70s in California, don't know why, flattened out the data, looked at it left and right. What we found is what we call the truth about trust. And I sugarcoat this next part of my message for a lot of audiences. They said it didn't have to do it for you, right? The truth about trust, the truth is you got people who've known you for 5 years and still don't trust you. And some have known you for 5 minutes and they do. Why would that be? Because trust is built on the foundation of 2 things, compassion and competence. Compassion and competence. They believe you care about them and their situation and what's important to them. And they believe you can do your job however they believe that's defined, which is usually based on how you've defined it or done it. If they believe those 2 things, they'll trust you pretty quickly. That's why somebody's brand new and dumb as a stump, no matter what age this person is, and people listen to anything that person says. This person is brilliant and tenured, been around for 30 years, and no one listens to anything that person says about anything. But how do you prove to somebody in a very short period of time that you do care and you are competent? So we interviewed people, the kind of people in similar businesses to yours. And here is the amalgamated answer that comes back from those hundreds of thousands of anonymous customer surveys and anonymous employee surveys. Here's the overall answer. I felt heard. I felt listened to. It was collaborative. I could see my input and their solution as proof of being heard. So all this, I felt heard. Sounded kind of fluffy to me. I'm kind of a science-minded guy. But my staff, who are all in their 20s pretty much, told me that I might not be the sharpest knife in the drawer because I didn't see what I had, which is a gigantic body of information that shows that people feel heard and listened to. In the first 30 seconds or a minute and a half of any individual encounter, they start to trust you automatically, don't even know why. So what is your name, sir? Eric. I said, hey, Eric, listen, got some stuff I'll explain to you, really important stuff. And here I go. Now, maybe, Eric, you listen to me because I'm your boss or your favorite vendor or something, but that's about all the influence I have in general. That's it. What's your name? Tom. Same thing, Tom. I'm going to tell you what's going on, new thing we're going to roll out for you. But, Tom, before I do, let me ask you some questions about what you're doing now, what you like and don't like about what you've got now. It might help me explain the new idea and the new way better. And I'll let you talk about yourself, Tom, and all your crap about yourself and go on, mostly lies. Let you talk. And when you're through, I'd say the same thing I said to him. Yeah, I wasn't smarter or better, didn't have a better idea. I just let you talk. Now, what I did right there is way, way, way too simple. And I mean way too simple for most people. In fact, statistically, the more experience that you have, the more knowledge that you have, the more expertise that you have, the least likely you are to do it. It is the pure and simple power of making people feel heard. It's why that vendor can show up that no one's heard of, who's new, and get all that business you don't understand. It's why that new supervisor you hired, everybody listens to them for some reason, you know why, and they're brand new. It is the pure and simple power of making people feel heard. Okay, Garrison, I get it. Listening and leadership and listening and sales and listening and relationships and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it makes sense. But here's what we found. So we started looking for a magic bullet for influence. When people got along together of any generation in any circumstances, was there some kind of thing? So we were very lucky. This is my 28th year, doing this, and we work with a lot of big companies. So we got ExxonMobil, BASF, Caterpillar, Komatsu, John Deere, General Electric, Pacific Gas and Electric, Duke Energy, Southern Company, and the people under them, Alabama Power. We got all these companies to give us a look at their anonymous employee surveys and just the basic foundations of that. And when people said, I feel heard and listened to and trust the people I work with, okay, then they bought more, they stayed longer at their job, they were easier to work with, they had fewer incidents or safety issues. When it had the opposite, no one listens to me, nobody's talking to me, I don't feel supported by my supervisor. When you heard that, the opposite of that. So there was some definable evidence. When people feel heard and listened to, they are going to trust you more, and they're going to be connected. And that may sound pretty simple, but it's a foundational thing we can actually prove. So okay, what is listening anyway? So we talked to 20 neurologists that do nothing but study listening for a living. And here's what neurologists told me. I'm going to paraphrase for you. So you guys know you have different chemicals in your brain, right? Some of you more than others based on what you did last night, sir. Eric. This is a chemically balanced brain. You got a chemically balanced brain, you act normally, right? You got a chemically imbalanced brain, you're going to underact or overact throughout the day. Feeling pretty good, shut up, I've had it, you're fired. There are gigantic chemical imbalances we know. Like in the last 7 years, there's medication that can even those things up. And by the way, if you need medication, please take it. I take all of yours now, sir. Right. So the general idea how chemicals work in the brain. When someone feels truly heard and listened to and they trust, when someone feels truly heard and they feel listened to and they trust, when they feel that way, literally the pituitary gland squirts a fluid over the brain that puts that person in an anesthetized state. There's a long neurological explanation for this, but I call it being stoned on like. They will choose this person over that person, sometimes based on no other criteria. It's why people fall in love and get the hots for each other. It's why somebody will stay with the same vendor, the same boss, the same company, the same idea, the same parts, the same product, the same brand forever, regardless of any other measurable, tangible result. It is the pure and simple power of making people feel heard. It's why the leader and boss that's willing to listen to their employees keeps those employees longer, they perform better. That's why there's that sales guy that everybody buys from, even though they don't know a whole bunch. It isn't the best salesperson in the whole world. It's that foundational part of listening. But when I think about the pure power of making people feel heard, there's a non-scientific example I like a lot better about the pure power of making people feel heard. Have you ever seen a fantastic woman? This is a great woman. She's dynamic. She's fantastic. She's a great mother. She's a great leader. She's a great spouse. This is a wonderful woman anybody want to be with, but she's married to this guy that's got no job and no sense and no future and no hope and no charisma. And this guy's got nothing. You know what that is? That is one damn good listener. And don't kid yourself. What the hell is she doing with him? Yeah, so it's the pure and simple power of making people feel heard. We found that regardless of someone's experience or how old they are, of any generation, if we're willing to make people feel heard, we have massive influence. We could get them to listen to us, to believe in us, and had massive effect. And that's employee retention and everything else. But that leads to this. Wait a second, Garrison, these people have a different agenda. What about people with a different agenda? No one has a different agenda. All humans statistically want three things. They want love, money, and prestige. I'll rephrase that. They want sincerity. They want multiple solutions for a single problem. And they want to look good in front of the people they want to look good in front of. Number one, are you real or are you fake? Are you really the person in front of your friends and family, or put on work mask or put on airs? Yep. Are you real? Are you being real? Are you sincere? If I said, hey, Eric, man, you're my favorite employee, man. I really think that you're great, and I think we got some synergy, Yeah, that's called bullshit, Eric's what that's called. Yeah. We trust people because we know they're being who they are. How many of you work with some eccentric characters? Oh, you got them in your business. I've seen them. Right? Why do we trust these eccentric characters so much? Why? Because we know they're being who they are. Have you noticed we let kind of eccentric characters get away with stuff we don't let other people get away with? What happened last night? Oh, just Jimmy got drunk and stole some laptops. He'll bring them back. You know Jimmy. What happens if you're phony and screw up? Not so well forgiven. So what that means is whoever you are, be that, right? Number two, do you have multiple solutions for a single problem? If you're the kind of person who goes, only one way to do it. There's just one way. They built the facility around my body. There's just one way. The minute that flies out of your mouth, everybody under 30 knows you're full of it. You're under 30 years old, you were raised with computers from the crib. You know one thing above all others, there's more than one way to do everything. And the safety director for Shell Oil said it best many years ago at a safety meeting. Everybody gather around the safety meeting. There's three ways we can do this. Two of them will kill you. I do it this way. It's called the non-death method, Eric. It's my favorite way. I'm not saying your way's wrong. We do it this way because it's repeatable. People need to know you've got multiple solutions for a single problem, and you're not just trying to drive a single agenda. When I think about multiple solutions for a single problem, there's a lady down in Florida, and she's a living embodiment of multiple solutions for a single problem because she's a veterinarian and a taxidermist. Yeah, and her motto is either way, you're getting your dog back. Either way. Number three is prestige. Can you make people look smart? Can you make people look good in front of the people they want to look good in front of? Right? Can you teach somebody the new way and have them go take credit for it? And why are we talking about these three things? If people know that you're real, then you really are, and they know you're not just stuck with one idea, that you're open, open to options, and they know they'll look good to others. They know those three things about you. They'll listen to every single thing you say, every time you open your mouth for the rest of your life, regardless of your age, and sometimes regardless of any experience. It is the foundational level of influence. That leads to something else, and that is believability. You guys know some things may be true, but not that believable. We talked about old TV shows. Who watches old TV shows? Yeah, we talked about Lassie and Flipper. Well, back in the mid-'60s to early '70s, we had these ridiculous TV shows that didn't have very believable premises. You remember like Gilligan's Island and all that stuff. The least believable of these technically was the TV show Bonanza. And for those of you too young to remember Bonanza, Bonanza was a story of a 50-year-old dad and his three 48-year-old sons, and that was the show. Not very believable. We get face to face with people that believe things so strongly, they're just looking for reasons to prove what they already believe is true. I'll say it again. We get face to face with people that believe things so strongly, they're just looking for reasons to prove what they already believe is true. And that makes change management and moving things forward difficult. So let me show you the change management meeting that is the most popular on planet Earth and by far the least effective. Everybody gather around. Let's talk about the new way. Eric, first of all, the old way was bad. The old thing was bad. New way is good because it's new. List all the features and benefits. So what do people say been around for a while? I don't want new. I'm old school. I want to put white out on the computer screen and do it the old damn way. The reason people don't want to change is because nobody wants to be a senior beginner. Nobody wants to wake up and realize what they used to know is no longer valid. So they shoot holes in the new way and they cling to the old way because it makes them smart. What is your name, sir, up front here? Tony. I said, hey, Tony, look, man, I know you've been around 25 years, but starting next week, everything you've learned about this business is going to change. Everything's going to, your knowledge is going to be, what's the word I'm looking for, Tony? Irrelevant. But don't worry, because starting on Monday, 21-year-old Hunter is going to train you. Yeah, you've now lost the will to live because nobody wants that shit. Nobody wants that. It's not working. So what about the change management meeting that's actually working? Let's talk about the new way. First of all, the old way, Tony, Eric, let me show you how the old way and the new way are similar. Let me show you how what you know and your knowledge after all these years is still going to be valuable because the new way we're doing it and the old way have some similarities, and so your experience is going to be helpful. Once I show you how the new way and the old way are similar first, then I show you how it might be different, might be better. You want to get buy-in on change. You want to get buy-in on the new product, a new way. Similarities first, differences second. This idea that you can walk up to somebody who's been around for a long time and try to tell them that you've got a new, better idea that makes their old idea wrong or invalid. Can't sell anything that way. You can't manage people that way, not now. You got to show them how their existing knowledge is valuable first and then how it might be different or better. Again, similarities first, differences second. But after that, what about people who've been around? How many of you deal with people who've been around a long time? Yeah. Have you had somebody walk up to you you thought were dead and there they were? Somebody come up. Somebody coming to work one day, I thought he died in 2015, but he looks good. Who in this room's been around? Who's been working for longer than 35 years in your life? 35 years? Right? Let's go 40 years. 40 years. Let's go 45 to 45 years, 45. 50, you've been working 50 years, 50. Who can beat 50, 55 years, 55. Got two guys? Okay, who's got it? 56, 57? Who's got the most? You? Okay, what is your name, sir?
Alvin Caddis.
Alvin, you've been around a long time, Alvin.
Yeah,
you've seen some things change, haven't you, Alvin?
Yes, sir.
When you first started working, right after the Spanish-American War, when you first got in, Alvin, things were different back then. But when people see Alvin doing things a new way, they know change is here for real. Alvin's on TikTok, I better get cracking because change is here for real. And that makes you the catalyst for change, Alvin. So as valuable as you've been all these years, you're likely the most valuable now. Give it up for Alvin, important. Yep. So why is it so important to have people like Alvin around? Alvin will tell you some new person comes up and can't solve a problem. Some new person comes up and says, there's not an app, there's not an app for that. There's no app, there's not an app. There's no electricity. Help me, Alvin, help me. Alvin says, I'll fix it with a Q-tip. Bam. I said that to say this. We know Alvin's valuable, but I said that to say this. The number one thing that all humans value is feeling valuable. And that's not a feel-good story or my opinion or a theory. That's the cumulative results of 70 years of Gallup surveys in 40 countries. What we actually kind of know about people. Make people feel valuable, they'll value you. Now, I'm sure you've heard, especially in the last 5 or 10 years, the term employee engagement, right? But what is an engaged employee? Engaged employee feels 3 things. Number one, they feel like their direct supervisor supports them, okay? And the people around them support them, or their vendor supports them, they feel supported. Number 2, they understand the job they do every single day, even if it's just picking up sticks in the yard, whatever their job they do, they understand how that job, their boss told them how that job helps the entire organization succeed. Number 3, they see a future. A job they like going to every day, or maybe a promotion. That's what a good job looks like. People who believe they have a good job do a good job. Employee opinion drives productivity. So it's important to understand that. So we started looking at what we could see about things and what's going on, what's changing. So I've got the latest with me here from Gallup. So if you take a look at this chart, this is the latest from Gallup. If you take a look at this, this is the U.S. working population. So 30% of this stack on this side right there, those people feel the way I just described, right? Okay? 55% do not feel that way, and 15% hate your guts, hope the building burns down and you're in it, they hate your damn guts, okay? 15%. So the first thing we do is ignore people. Hey man, just shut up, just do your job, I don't need you, just shut up. We do that, all of your engagement goes away and people start quitting. When I say quitting, in the last 65 months, more people have quit their job than in the history of recorded data. There's absolutely nothing like it. And we ask why they quit, being ignored. Nobody's talking to me, the boss didn't talk to me, my vendor didn't call me. They're not just quitting their job, they're quitting the company, right? They're leaving and going someplace else. So what do we do typically? We work on weaknesses. That's what we've been doing lately. I mean, last, 60 years. Eric, I'm going to work on your weaknesses. Ready? I'll meet with you. I'm going to say you're my employee. Ready? Okay. This is our quarterly meeting. Hey, let's talk about the 5 ways you suck, Eric. Suck, super suck, really suck. You set an employee on fire. That sucks. Yeah. Okay. My advice to you as your leader, don't suck. Okay. See you around. All right. Come back. Wait, it's working at 45%. Look at that. It's up. That's got to be good. Look at that. It's working, right? No, for the first time ever in history, people are marking on an employee survey that they're engaged and still quitting. They're still quitting. Customers still leaving after they say they're satisfied. That's right. So, and by the way, if you're a salesperson, the sales version is this. Hey, let's talk about your pain points. Understand you guys are having a difficult time and having some problems. I got a product that'll solve those horrible problems that you're suffering from. Sounds bad. How about this? How about this part? How about this tractor attachment? Because you need that for sure based on what you said. Sounds horrible. Yeah, it's not working. It's not working. Okay, so what's the opposite of that? And we'll do the leadership version. It's easy. I'm going to meet with you, Eric, again. I'm going to be your supervisor. So what we're going to do is the opposite of that. We're going to flip it around. Hey, Eric, good to see you. Let's talk about what's working. Business is good. Things are going better. The guy you set on fire lived, so we can cap the lawsuit, baby. Yeah, good job on that. Now let's talk about some things that we can work on. Then I talk about the weaknesses. All I did in my conversation was start talking about what's working first. By the way, if someone's under the age of 35 years old, quadruple all this. People under 35 years old said, if you started off a conversation, talk to me about something negative I did wrong, I never heard the praise at the end. So it's completely a waste of time. So if you're going to manage young people, here's what you're doing right. Okay, here's what's working, here's what we need to work on, all we did. And how effective are these results? Engaged employees and customers and coworkers are 40 times more likely to recommend and support you, your ideas, plans, decisions. They are 74% less likely to mentally and emotionally check out, so it improves awareness. 15.5 times more likely to stay with you, employee retention, less burnout. 9 times more likely to enjoy working with you, they feel valued, more collaborative. 43% more focused, less distracted, less stressed, safer, more flexible. 4.6 times more likely to help you help them. They're more honest, they're more accountable. 86% more likely to be loyal to you, your strategy, the organization. Making people feel valuable and focusing much more on strengths and weaknesses allows everything else you do to get better results. So interesting. But it also comes down to engagement creates a culture of loyalty. A dog isn't loyal because you love it and pet it and feed it. A dog is loyal because you scratch him in places he cannot reach. You bring me anybody's dog, bring me any dog, and I'll scratch that dog where you didn't scratch her and it can't scratch itself. It'll follow me anywhere, right? So what are we doing for people they could not do for themselves? And the answer, that's right, is clarity. Are you clear? Not intelligence or a better idea, but are you clear? So my Aunt Ethel, who lives in Savannah, Georgia, she is 90 years old. My dad is also 90 years old. My dad and I have not seen Aunt Ethel in like 20 years. So we go to Savannah, Georgia to see Aunt Ethel, who's a genius, but not very clear. And we go there, haven't seen her in 20 years. Aunt Ethel looks at me. She looks at my dad, looks back at me, and here's what she said. She goes, you know something, Garrison, you look more like your daddy than your daddy looks like himself. What? Then she clarified, what I mean is your daddy, who doesn't look like anybody now, did then, you know. No, we don't know. It doesn't matter how smart you are if no one knows what you're talking about. So we found that it wasn't just intelligence, it was clarity. And when you're talking to people who are of a different generation you are, that didn't grow up, when you grew up, clarity is gigantic. A lot of young people don't even know what you're talking. I heard a young 21-year-old guy goes, yeah, my boss told me that like I needed to play my cards like close to my chest. Is that poker? Like, he has no, I don't know what that means. He's 21. Yeah. So what does a good job look like when it's finished? That kind of clarity, not just the steps to get there. What does a good job look like when it's done? But also, employees are 63% more likely to quit when they receive unclear feedback. And that's every bit of research showed that. But also, the best question for creating loyalty, this is good for salespeople, good for leaders. I'll come ask you this, Eric. Eric, is there a question in our conversation today that I didn't ask you that you believe I should have? It proves I care. It proves I listen, and might get you to ask the question you were afraid to ask. So important when it comes to creating that level of loyalty. But also offer guidance, not just expertise, value their knowledge and experience. People get loyal when shown how their own abilities help them succeed. Teaching people to develop their own brilliance is just much more effective than giving them yours. And that works with your kids and your vendors and your employees. Real important. That's what 15 pieces of research all showed the same thing. That leads us to this. We're winning the talent war where acceptance equals influence. Right now, 44% of unemployed people age 22 to 32 in the U.S. are not looking for a full-time job. So if you can't find employees, they don't exist, they're not looking. First time ever. That's half a generation, about 40 million people. 52% of these people live at home with their parents. They don't need a job, maybe, right? That's the most since the Great Depression. So if you're having a hard time finding people, that is the reason why. This is an anomaly, never happened historically ever. But also, resignation research shows that people don't quit jobs, they quit people. They don't quit the job, they quit the boss, typically, not the job. And what flies out of your mouth is the culture. And if you're a salesperson, they sometimes don't quit the company or the product, they quit you. What comes out of your mouth is typically, what flies out of your mouth is the culture, not what you think and believe. What's coming out of your mouth, that's what it feels like to work there or be around you. But also, bulldozer parents created a lack of resilience and increased sensitivity. I'm 62 years old, you can blame it on my generation. The idea was, back in the late 80s, it was a parenting idea. The idea was to swoop in and solve kids' problems before they had them. We were going to tell them that life was fair and swoop in and solve their problems before they had them. We're not going to let them fall off the bike, we're going to catch them. And we did that because we felt we had been poorly parented. But when we did that, they didn't get to fail till later on. And they failed too late, they didn't bounce back very well, and they don't have the same resiliency because of that. You want to blame somebody, blame my generation? We did it. It was our idea. It was late 80s. We were drinking a lot. I don't know what the hell the problem was, but that was the idea we came up with. And so what happens, it causes increased sensitivity. That's why young people are so sensitive. It almost kind of extends adolescence to a certain degree. But it's something that we did, that we created. Now, having said that, it's why one generation might be very different from another generation. But also, many people under 35 do not trust you if you give them a special deal. For the salespeople here, if I'm talking to 55-year-old Bob and say, hey, Bob, listen, man, I know your deal. I'm going to go ahead and give you a special price. I'm not giving it to anybody else. I'm just giving it to you, Bob, because I know you. We got a lot. If I do that, Bob's like, hey, man, thank you. 29-year-old Hunter, 26-year-old Hunter, you know what he says? He goes, why aren't you giving that to everybody? He actually doesn't trust you. Very different way of thinking. So things have changed. People think differently. You're talking to young people, be careful about saying that you're going to give them something special or not giving them. They think everybody else should get the deal you're giving them. I think it's a very interesting thing to think about. Things have changed. But also influencing people under 35, what's actually working? We taught an entire generation to question us. We taught them that, right? That's why when you're kids, or you're with your kids and you're saying something, they Google what you say to see if it's right. That's exactly right. We taught an entire generation of people to question us. We taught them to ask why. Now we've got to tell them. If you want to get the best results from people under age 35, you got to say, here's why we're doing it. Here's why. If you're the kind of person that goes, man, you don't need to know why, just do it. You have no influence right now. Yeah. So you got, here's why we're doing it. Here's what a good job looks like when it's finished. It's what on a scale of 1 out of 10, it's an 8 in urgency, and I got faith in you, and I believe you can do it. If you're willing to talk to young people that way, they're as good as anybody. Nothing wrong with these people, as good as anybody walk planet Earth. We just parented them differently. School system followed suit differently and taught them to think in a different way and believe in a different way. So this is actually working. We talk to people all the time. If you're willing to do this, we found that 17% of leaders were willing to do this. Only 17%. And guess what? Their employees are staying. They got productivity. People showing up for work on time. So it makes a huge, huge difference. But also, not all young people are the same. We're not going to lump all the young people together. We talked to 24-year-old Dylan, who has to use GPS to go to his girlfriend's house every single time. He's been there 50 times. We're like, Dylan, really every time? Why? He goes, well, I don't always know where I am. I'm like, what? Not all people are the same. We can't lump people the same. They're just not. Who's got kids? Raise your hand. What's the biggest lie in parenting? I got 4 kids. They're all doing great. Nope, nobody's got 4 good kids. No one has for you. You got 4 kids. One's on your couch smoking weed in your bathrobe right now. You know it. Nobody's got 4 good kids. You know it. You got 10 kids. You got 10 kids. One's in prison, and you know it. You know one's in prison. You got 10 kids. So this can't lump everybody together. But everybody's perfect, right? So important. But also, the worst leadership strategy is wishing people were like you. That's the worst one, because they're not. That's the worst thing. If you're doing this, you're miserable, because they're not going to be like you, for sure. We must deal with people for who they are, not who we wish they were. Important. But also, let's get real about people. If you're in your 20s and 30s, raise your hand. 20 and 30, raise your hand. 20s and 30s, come on. Yeah, man, yeah, 20s and 30s. Oh, yeah, my mom brought me to work. I'm young. 20s and 30s. 40s and 50s, Generation X. Yeah, I did it all myself. 40s and 50s, I made a ham sandwich at 1. I mowed the lawn at 2 years old. I killed a deer at 5, and so should you. Generation X did it all. Who's in your 60s? If you're in your 60s, you believe things should have been handled before you've arrived. Who's handling this? Who is handling this? Should have been handled. Who is handling this? Over 75 years old, stuff just flies out of your mouth uncontrollably. My dad's at a restaurant and there's a band playing, and my dad's like, you all take requests? Well, then play something good. Can't say that, Dad. It's possible that our age literally affects our beliefs. Important to understand that. But also, if you're under 35 years old, I created your kindergarten. I did. My generation did. Who's under 35? Raise your hand. Under 35? What's your name, sir? What now? Kenny. Kenny, how old are you? 33. So my generation been in your kindergarten because mine was so bad, right? So here's how if you remember, Kenny, how your kindergarten went something like this. Welcome to kindergarten, Kenny. We love you no matter what. We're going to reward you without accomplishment to build your self-esteem. And what that means, Kenny, is when you're making macaroni art, where the macaroni goes on the paper or your face, it's still art. We told you. But you know why we told you that? Because when I was in kindergarten, they said this: when you see the bright light flash from the nuclear explosion, get under your desk. And then it was nap time. Nap time? I can't sleep now. Nap time. Kenny, they told me I would survive a fireball under a wooden desk, and that's a lie. That's a damn lie. That's a lie. Right? So because of that, that's what happened. But here's the thing. There were good side effects from that. The truth is, Kenny, because of what you had in kindergarten, well, you were taught to partner. Right? You and I were taught to compete. Right? So that means you were taught to partner. You and I, for you to win, I got to lose. So what does that mean? You get a bunch of young guys like Kenny in a meeting talking about stuff. After a couple hours, you guys come up with what? Solution. You get me and Eric and a few older guys out there after a couple hours. That guy's an asshole. It's him. It is him. That's right. So you're going to solve some problems that we didn't solve. You're the future. You don't seem like it from here, but you are the future. You're going to have better ideas than me, not this week, but you will. But the problem, Kenny, with you and I is there's just too big of a gap. I mean, because of age, so that automatically has some differences. Because if you're 33, I'm 62, I'm old enough to be your daddy. I might be your daddy. I might. Where you from? Could have happened in the. I'm just teasing. Tell your mama I said hi. The thing is, it's going to be on this. He's shooting video back. It's going to be on YouTube in an hour, damn it. Anyway, but the thing about it is because of that distance we've got a distance. And that means I got to be willing to understand who you are and where you came from, take some responsibility for that. But also, I've been on the planet longer than you, so even if I'm dumb as a box of rocks, I know some things you might need to know. Make sense? Sometimes young people these days don't value experience, and that concerns me, because even if I'm just a dumb guy, I've been on the planet long. I know some things you might want to know. Make sense? Yeah, important. But also that leads to something else, and it is a big deal. So what happens is that the greatest impact of any generation is the one before it. And that's an important thing to keep in mind, the greatest impact. But also the frontal cortex for decision-making and impulse control is not fully formed till age 26. Who in this room is 26 or younger? Anybody? Okay. What is your name, sir? Dylan, of course it is. Dylan. They're all named Dylan, okay? I'm just telling you, nationally. So Dylan, how old are you? 25. So you have an unformed brain, Dylan. It's just coming. It's like, and it's just, your frontal cortex probably this week is just coming together like, damn, that's it, frontal cortex. But what it means is when you're under age 26, you never see a 55-year-old guy on his roof with a skateboard. We'll see you doing that, right? Because you're willing to take more risks, right? And you have more impulse. So as that frontal cortex comes together, then you'll not take those risks as like you do now. But before we get on Dylan's case about Dylan being young, what do Leonardo da Vinci, Sir Isaac Newton, Einstein, and Steve Jobs all have in common? They all had their best ideas before age 26. If you don't have a young person on your team, it's not a very good team. We need everybody. We need you. Give it up for Dylan. Important. Yep. Yep. And please tell your friends to come to work. Yeah, thank you. Important. So, but also we see the non-negotiables. If you're a leader and you want to manage people effectively, it's pretty easy to make non-negotiables. Look, welcome to the job. Here are the 3 things you have to do to work here. So these things are flexible, that's flexible, we can be flexible, these things we can't be flexible on. Our customers start calling at 9 o'clock in the morning, we got to be here at 9 o'clock in the morning. That's not negotiable. So find out whatever it is, find out what your non-negotiables are and make sure you say that when you bring people on, because a lot of times it's unclear, especially to a young employee, what has some flexibility and what does not. They've lived in a world of flexibility and they've been taught actually this is not negotiable. As leaders, we need to do that. And if you're talking to your customers and all that, you can tell your customers, here's what we can do, here's what we can't do, here's where I'm flexible, here's where I'm not. Important. But also, last year, 6 people were hospitalized for biting into McDonald's hot apple pies. And what do these 6 people have in common? They're idiots, what they have in common. But the McDonald's lawyer wins every time in court, every time. McDonald's lawyer wins every time, every single time. So let me do my impression of the McDonald's lawyer in court every time. Your Honor, it's a hot apple pie. It's because it's hot on the box. It ain't just an apple pie. It's a hot apple pie because it's freaking hot. It's a hot apple pie. Not apple pie. It doesn't say that anymore. It says hot apple pie on the box. Okay, he burned his mouth on a hot apple pie, not an apple pie. Case closed. That McDonald's lawyer wins every time because he's prepared. Sometimes you have to stand up for the basic foundational things because they are what they are. But we have to let people know that they are what they are and be direct. But being too direct can backfire. I told my girlfriend she needed to embrace her mistakes, right? So she hugged me. Yeah, so that did backfire. That backfired on me completely, by the way. True story. Sometimes we forget the basics and wonder why the specifics don't work. We forget the basics and then wonder why the specifics do not work. But also, change is mandatory and stress is optional. Stress is not a thing. There's no such thing as stress. We talk about stress like it's a physical condition or a medical condition. It's none of those things. Stress doesn't exist. Stress is a belief that you hold that makes you worried. That's why we are hospitalized because of worry. We jump out of airplanes for fun to go skydiving. Yeah. So it's a belief that you hold. So, but also, right now, let's talk about some reality. People are worried to death these days. But let's think about, well, what do we know? We know, but because we do the research over and over again for, I guess, every 10 years for 40 years, that 91% of everything everybody's worried about will never happen. So 91% of your fears or you're wasting your time, not going to happen. If things haven't worked, they say statistically that things work out in the end. If things have not worked out for you, it's probably not the end. Yeah. But we worry all the time, so being real. Things have a tendency to work out statistically. But also, expect bad news. For a lot of young people, they think there's some new stuff happening. You might think there's new stuff. Dylan, there's new stuff. No. World war, disease, famine, weird political crap forever since the beginning of time, since the days of Rome. It's just been the same thing. We have a world war every 100 years. We have, 20 pandemics in the last 500 years. None of this stuff is new a bit, but don't spread it to your people. So the reality of it is we're worried about stuff that is common. It's just called life on earth. Again, 20 pandemics in 500 years, a world war almost every 100 years. We had a civil war not too long ago in this country. So it's just called life. And worrying about that like there's some new strange thing, like the world's coming to an end. Sorry, none of that's actually true. And also, we told young people 30 years ago that they were responsible for the environment, that the environment was going to go away in their lifetime. And it's not true. And I'm not going to get into those touchy subjects, but I'm just so you know, we're going to be all right. Okay? I mean, we just are. The world isn't ending anytime soon. Sorry. I think somebody said the soonest it could end was 600 years, at least. So that doesn't sound like a long time, but it's long for us. So we can't worry about everything. So, but we can't spread. If I'm worried and I spread that fear to my people, then those people are not going to be effective. So we got to stop telling young people the world's coming to an end because it's not, okay? By the way, they said the world was coming to an end in the 11th century. That was when that started happening, right? So important. So, but also social media mostly brings us problems that we can't solve. So if you're looking at your phone and you're going through your news thread, your news that you're getting is created by the searches that you have and things you say to your phone hears you say, and it creates your own news. That means you and I may not have the same news based on our searches and beliefs. So if you want to know why people are arguing so much in the last 15 years, we no longer have the same information. A long time ago when you were watching Walter Cronkite and one person said the news, it went on for an hour, we could all at least argue over the same information. Now we have different information. So guess what? We're going to have all kinds of problems. But remember that you're creating your own news by the searches you have. It gives you a picture of the world that's customized for you. And guess what? This is really, really important. And that is expect bad news. News is going to be bad. You know why? There's not a nickel of money in good news. You can't sell Prozac or life insurance. You can't sell anything. I used to be in the media. You can't sell anything with good news. And you know why the news is so bad? Because you love it. And they know you love it. Let's all be honest about the news. You're on the internet and you're clicking around and you see a link that says, life is good, life is great. Would you click that link? No. If it said headless body found in topless bar, damn, that's some news. That's real news right there. See? Yeah, that's, to be honest. So there's just no money. There's no money in good news. Expect bad news. Just don't spread it. But also, focusing on problems we can solve reduces stress. If you got a list and you're trying to work on your list that day, as you get something done and you strike it off the list, you feel better because you struck it off the list. That is what de-stress feels like. You're getting less stress as you accomplish things. So take a look at what you can do something about and work on that. How about your business? How about your family? How about, working on things, but watching the news and worrying about some war that you're not in that you can't do anything about that's the same war they had 100 years ago is a waste of time. So important. So accomplishment equals less stress. But also the stress-free approach to change is important. I'll use Eric again. Sometimes we talk to people, we'll make it a safety issue. I'll say, hey, Eric, you've been here 25 years, I've just been here 4 years, right? But as your supervisor, I got to tell you that you're not doing it the safe way. Now, you've never had a near miss. You've never had an incident. You've obviously never had a fatality. You're still here. You've never had any problem. but the way you do it isn't the right way or the safe way that we teach. And other people who are younger are going to watch you and they're going to emulate you and they're going to copy you and they're going to get hurt because they don't have your talent or your experience or your luck or whatever the hell it is, right? So what I'd like you to do is to maybe change what you're doing, not for me or for you, but for them. Does that make sense? You know, it's kind of like a culture is a team sport. Does that make sense? You know, so I understand you never had a problem with it, but as good as you are doing it the right way, just do that extra minute or so. Important. When we're not stressed and we're calm and we understand people pretty well and our relationships are good and we honor people for who they are, how old they are, what their experience is, conversations like that are pretty easy. It's when we don't have all those things that makes that conversation difficult. So important. But also, doing what's important reduces stress, focusing on the right things. The leading cause of stress is knowing exactly what you're supposed to be doing and consistently doing something else. That would be the leading cause of stress. We know what we're supposed to be doing, we're doing something else, you know, important. So, but also, you can't lead by example if you're a bad example. My shop teacher in high school had 3 fingers. He knew what to do, he just wasn't that good at it. He'd be, everybody pick up your saw. We're talking about saw safety. We're talking about everybody. I'm not touching that damn thing, you're missing a finger, right? What are you talking about? Yeah, so that's not working. The definition of leadership is someone following someone because they want to and not because they have to. That's leadership. But you've probably heard about accountability. We got to hold these young people, hold these people accountable. You got to hold these older people accountable. You got to held accountable. So let me show you how accountability doesn't work. You guys are my team. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ready? Here's the wrong way to hold your people accountable. Last week sucked, man. That sucked. You sucked specifically. That was terrible. It's awful. I'm not even sure you work here. It's weird, Eric. That was bad. Really bad. You guys stink. Okay. So let's go around the room, talk about why we suck so bad, okay, and see if we can work it out. So what do you suck? We'll start with you. Has that ever worked? That's what people do. Is that, you know? Yeah. No. So what does work? All right. So last week sucked. It was bad. I understand you now have a badge. You work here. Good. It was bad. It was bad. You were specifically bad, so it was bad. As a leader, a supervisor, I think here's what I think I could do differently. I think I could have definitely had a second meeting for sure and focused on some specific things a little more than I did. Right? Obviously, with the problems we had, I think that's what I could do. So that's what I think I could do differently for sure. That's what I will do differently next time to make sure we don't have these problems. That's the role I'm going to play in the future. What are you guys going to do differently? We'll start with you. The number one way to hold people accountable is to hold yourself accountable in front of them first. It works every time. It's a guarantee. It's a lock. This is my 28th year speaking at conventions for a living, so 80, 90 events a year. And I don't tell you that to impress you. Okay, I kind of do. But besides me trying to impress you with that, what it means is we've had a lot of data we get from presentations over the years, like what do people think about the most? We get more emails on, hey, I sat my people down and I did that accountability thing where I talked about the role I played and what do you get? It works like a champ. We get that every month for 28 years. So it's something that works, it's worth it. It creates a culture of accountability. And what we're finding in the last 10 or 15 years is that people, especially under age 35, they're not very confrontational at all. And you know, I don't know, you know how an old guy quits and a young guy quits? Yeah. Here's how 55-year-old Bob quits. That's it, man, I'm done. I've been here for 20 years. I quit, damn it. I'm going to give you a 5-minute notice. He's mad, and I quit. And he leaves. You know how 25-year-old Hunter quits? Like this. Has anyone seen Hunter? Where's Hunter? Where is Hunter? He was just here. Where is Hunter? Yeah, not quite so confrontational. So it's important that if we're going to influence young people, especially, that we're willing to say, hey, look, here's what I'm going to do differently. What are you going to do differently? Important. But before we move on, it's important at this point I say this. If you were raised a certain way and grew up a certain way, especially if you're raised in a rural environment, you have an idea about how things are supposed to be. These young people ought to do the things that I did and pay the dues that I paid. If that's you, they're going to put a dinosaur stamp on your head and shove you in a hole. All right? So things have changed, and human beings change over time, and we have to kind of manage the people that we have now. not manage us. They're not us. They weren't raised like us. No, nobody raises people like they're parented. You may think you're raising your kids like your dad raised you, but you know you didn't, like your mom, you know you didn't. So that thing kind of changed, and things do change. There's a larger gap these days than there has been maybe in a long time. It's a bigger gap, but it's important. The reason I say that is the stuff I'm talking about today, there's a lot of really cool things I can say that make me sound cool and smart. We just don't have any research behind them. I can talk about what we know is actually working, but people say, hey, we're doing this, and it actually works. So important. But also, I had to talk technology with the World War II guys back in the mid-'80s. So I was in my mid-20s. The World War II guys would not retire. They were all 66, 67, 68, 70, 71, 72. You okay, ma'am? Okay. She's got to go to sleep now. But they were all, mid-60s, late 60s, early 70s. And if you ever had to talk to those guys, I did, and I was the young guy to go talk to them about moving technology forward in the mid-'80s, and it went something like this, and you went in their office there and smoking cigarettes. You want a scotch? It's 9 a.m. Beer? You want a beer? No. I'm here to talk about technology. We don't need no tech. We beat the Germans. They had better technology. Yeah, you knock out one of those German Tiger tanks, you surround it with 17 Sherman tanks, and shoot it till it runs out of gas. Like, what? Okay. Sometimes you have to honor people who honor them. You got to honor people and use it. You had to honor them and use it. So what I said was this. I said, look, I know that you guys won World War II, and I wouldn't be here without you. And you've made a gigantic contribution, maybe the biggest contribution we can measure than any generation. So I want you to know that I know that, and that I honor that. And I know you guys all have shrapnel in your knee, and I know you all stormed the beaches of Normandy and Iwo Jima. I totally respect that, and I totally honor that. But if we don't improve our technology, we're getting ready to go into a gunfight with a sharpened popsicle stick and lose our ass is what's going to happen. And I know that you guys don't want to retire losers. I know that you guys are going to retire hopefully very soon. And you want to go out a winner. You guys have always been winners. And all I want you to do is just pull the financial trigger, okay, and back us, put some money and put some positive stuff behind us, investing in technology. We're getting pulled off vendor lists. We're not moving forward. We've got safety issues. Say with safety, we know it's dangerous while we pay them, son. All right, look, I understand where you're coming from, but you guys are getting ready to retire. Can you please leave us with the legacy that you did before of winning? We need to win. We got to win this. We got to win this tech war, and you can do. You got the money, and you got the position to do it. Okay? And they agreed, and I drank the scotch. So here's the thing: we're going to be face to face with people that are not going to believe what we believe. They came from a different situation. They came from a different time, different circumstances. We have to work with those people. And if everybody on your team is just like you, that's a crappy team. That's a terrible team. Yeah. So teams, everybody the same. A football team that are all left tackles is a terrible football team. We take different people that think differently, different age, different perspectives, different mindsets to move forward. And also, you probably remember this: you don't have to like me, you just have to respect me. It turns out these days, young people don't respect anybody they don't like. I call it the end of assholism. That's over. Yeah. So what we have to do is have a likable leadership style, a likable way of approaching people, because that is the culture that we are in now. Important. That is the culture we're in now. People cannot pass on what they were never exposed to. So if you want them to treat their customers a certain way, you want them to treat their employees a certain way, you want them to put that in the world, that's what we have to do for them. It's not always easy. You don't always have to like it. But we need each other. One thing about human beings, we are pack animals. Humanity is a team sport. Boy, we need each other. That's the reason we've survived. Just so you know, the guy that went to go fight the saber-toothed tiger by himself, that guy is not our ancestor. He was killed. He's dead. The guy that said, that's a 2,500-pound cat, I need some more people, maybe a younger, faster guy, and some more spears. Those people that did that, those are our ancestors. So working together as a team and doing what it takes to get along together, regardless of our differences and our generational differences especially, is a really big deal. It's a huge thing. I've got kids, many of us have kids and all that, and raising kids is not easy, but if we can do the best we can with them, people need to know they're cared for. You'll notice all the research that you see these days, and it all comes back to the same. If people feel cared for and they feel listened to and they feel valuable, then you've got a shot getting them to do what you want them to do. And if you don't do that these days, you simply just don't. So that's kind of how things move forward. Anyway, also, many young people do not know history, but were told it was mostly bad. So they quit teaching, I guess, broad world history about 25 years ago. So we're talking to people, younger guys like you. You just weren't taught the same history I was at all. You don't know how it all works together, and you don't even know that there was a war of 1812. Anyway, it's not true. You don't know why they fought it. Anyway, but so the thing about it is that there's different information out there. So let's make sure that we realize that some people do not know the things. They were not taught the same things in the same way that we were. It doesn't make them stupid, and it doesn't make them, uninformed. They just weren't exposed to that, okay? So important. But also, we have to honor their experience as we guide them and learn from them. I've just got something to learn from you. There's stuff you don't know that I can help you with. There's stuff that I don't know that you can help me with. That's really important. Sometimes I got problems and I need a young person to solve it. I know I can, log into my Facebook account. Thank you. He's handing the phone to him right now. So, by the way, every generation was always better. When in the mid 80s, I was telling those World War II guys how to turn on a computer. They wouldn't touch it. I'm not touching that thing. I said, you were shot at in the war. You can't do it. Why won't you touch this thing? Yeah, so that's been around for a while. Change is not the issue. Resistance to change is. My dad is 90 years old, on the computer every day. Years ago, it wasn't. Years ago, my dad sent me his very first, you ever get the very first email from your old dad? Just 2 words, damn it. My dad's first email. It just said, damn it. Last Christmas, my dad bought all my family's presents online. Of course, he bought me a nightgown because he's 90 years old. Got me a nightgown from Amazon.com. My dad knows that resistance is not just change, it is in fact resistance. The true definition of treading water is controlled drowning. That's what that is. If you're just staying the same, treading water. Also doing this and not moving around attracts sharks. Yeah. So we have to make a change and move forward. Action and adaptability create opportunity. Action and adaptability create opportunity. Are you flexible enough along the way to the goal? But also, as we wind down here today, can we really create, can we close that door? Can we really create a sustainable culture of generations working better together? Can we build a stronger bridge? I mean, can an individual person really make that happen? There's a guy driving down the freeway. He is on the 405 in LA. It's the worst traffic in the country. Cars are everywhere and coming at him and stuff. His wife calls on the cell phone and says, honey, be careful watching the news. This is a crazy man going the wrong way down the freeway. He goes, no, honey, there are thousands of them. Sometimes it's you. Sometimes, in fact, it is you. If you're willing to take a look at the role you play in other people's behavior, you have massive influence. Take a look at the role that you're playing in somebody else's behavior. But also, what flies out of your mouth is the culture. What you say, what you're talking about, what comes out of your mouth. I heard a guy on a job site say this: you young people don't know nothing. You have these special equipment and special tools. Back in the 80s, we got down there naked and fixed it because we were men. Like, what? What's he talking about? He was naked? He was trying to make a point how brave he was. Yeah, not everybody had your experience, but one experience from a generation. We see somebody new doing it. That is a new way. And just so you know, Dylan, you're going to really do some things better than we are. Every generation does. How much better are you than your dad? You know you are a little bit. Yeah. So that means Dylan's going to be better than me. Not this week, but you will. Important. That's the truth. That's just how, that is the future. It just moves that way all the time. It is just how it is. Knowing it and doing it have nothing in common. Knowledge isn't power. No, implementation of knowledge is power. And heroes and cowards feel the same fear. Just the action they take that separates them. Relationships are the foundation of civilization. Personal influence, communication, and acceptance are the foundations of relationships. Circumstances do not create your destiny. No, you do. Someone always succeeds in working better together. Why would that not be you? Important. But also set yourself up to win first and put your effort behind that. Position yourself with generations working better together in communication and influence. set yourself up with that and put your efforts behind that. Create an advantage that allows you to succeed even when things go wrong. So last story, and I'm through. So years ago, my girlfriend and I were at an event, and she was clapping. And one ring hit another ring, and the diamond fell out. Didn't know. The next day, I went back and said, hey, we lost the diamond. Well, sorry about that. We swept and mopped 3 times, had 3 more events after yours. At the end of the day, on a 25,000 square foot wood floor, this guy drives like a wood waxing Zamboni machine around for smoking a cigarette for like 3 hours. You are never going to find the diamond. She goes, I can find it. So she gets on her hands and knees on the floor, crawling around this giant floor. And people are looking at me going, that's just so sad. That is so sad. I'm like, so sad. After 45 minutes of crawling on that floor, she saw a glimmer in that giant room and found the diamond. She's like, told you. They're like, what? So I'm going to leave you with 2 lessons here today from the story that I just told you about my girlfriend, and then from the lesson, the presentation I just gave, same 2 lessons. If something's important enough to you, if you believe in it enough, and if it really, really, truly means that much to you, if it really means that much to you, if it really does, if it really means that much to you, the drive, the motivation, the vision, the effort that comes out of you is just amazing. But also, if you buy a really big diamond, they're easy to find. You can find a big diamond. Set yourself up to win, okay? All right? Position yourself ahead of time, right? With everything you can to succeed, okay? And then put your actions and efforts behind that. I'm Garrison Wynn. Thank you so much, folks. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Garrison.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Always good stuff. And we want to make sure, did you enjoy that? Yeah. All right. One of the things that we didn't do before Garrison talked, because we wanted to make sure that you were impacted. Now we want to say thank you to Steiner Tractor for sponsoring Garrison Wynn. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Lunch is good.
Lunch next door.
That's the most damn important thing, right?
That, for sure.
Escort review will be starting at 1 o'clock, back in Tech 11.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
I was trying to read. I think everything.
That went very well. Yep. Thank you so much.
Thoroughly.
Oh, thank you.
Thoroughly.
Thank you. Thanks for being here, man. Go get them, brother. We need you.